Hey there, everybody. Danny Diamond here, and welcome to the very first video edition ever of Listomania here on the Diamond Mine. So, those of you who've been supporting some of my internet radio activity and are familiar with the IRN Lounge will know that Listomania is a segment on the lounge, and my buddy Midnight Mike and I originally what became Iron Lounge was going to be Listomania, and Mike talked me into recognizing the very real fact that that was too limiting for a partnership show. And I'm glad he did that. It really is just worthy of a segment, but it is something I'm going to be doing a lot here on TDM, on the YouTube channel. And I want to thank you all for your wonderful support already. The channel's only been up a couple weeks, and I've already got a number of subscribers. I've gotten a lot of really nice comments on the videos. Thank you so much for supporting my guitar playing. What Listomania is going to be, though, is me just, anyone who knows me who's ever gone and had a drink with me or sat at a restaurant with me, they know that I'm just nuts about going on and on about, oh, these are my top 3 favorite bands, or these are my, you want to hear my ranking of all the Rush albums, that kind of thing. And that's what I'm going to be just really indulgent about with Listomania. And I'm not going to edit the crap out of this. I tried to make an audio version of my Rush ranking, and I'll do a video version. I went back and I listened to that, and I put a lot of effort into it, and had some really cool background music for it from different Rush bootlegs, so I wouldn't get kicked off of YouTube or whatever platform. But I listened back to it, and it was just so stiff. And I'm thinking that maybe the video platform, if I can just sort of imagine that I'm talking to a friend, which in a way I hope I am. I consider all of you, my supporters, my friends. I'm thinking this will be a little less stiff, a little bit more fun. I'm certainly hoping so. I'm going to try and keep it conversational, even though it's a monologue. We can eventually turn things into some dialogue. If you all comment below, I'm going to read through them. I'll comment on them on YouTube. I'll probably mention them in future Listomania editions, so on and so forth. But without further ado, we'll get into the band of the hour, my favorite American band, and my third favorite band overall. We are talking, of course, about the mighty Van Halen. As you can see from this shirt here, there's going to be aspects of Listomania where it's almost like show and tell. I've even got some concert t-shirts that I've dug out to share with you guys. We're just going to have fun, okay? So I'm not trying to make a definitive list. This is not the be-all, end-all of all Van Halen lists. This is my opinion. I'm a 50-year-old guitar player. I do think I know a little bit about Van Halen, and Eddie's really the main reason that I play. There are other people involved in that, but if it comes down to any number one person that made me choose guitar as my instrument, my rock instrument, my primary instrument, it's Eddie. Okay, so this is my personal thinking of worst to first for Van Halen, and really, I'd say there's only one real kind of failure of an album on this list. So we're going to go ahead and kick off with my pick for the 12th, number 12 from worst to first, so the worst Van Halen album. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised here when I show you the cover of Van Halen 3. Now, this still had, I really liked it at the time that it came out. I think I was just so hungry for some new music from Van Halen at that point. And also, I had been since the beginning, extreme fan, and so I was excited about Gary Cherone, but the chemistry, it either, just hadn't developed yet, and that's something that Gary has hinted at in interviews about the band and and the troubles at the time and that album. He had said that he wished they'd done a tour first and then recorded, and maybe we would have wound up with a better record there. And hey, maybe Van Halen and that idiom would have gone on and on. Who knows? But I am going to say that even the worst Van Halen album still has some fun moments. And so I'm going to try and come up with at least the top 3 songs from each one of these records. So from Van Halen 3, I would say that Head and Shoulders Above the Rest of the Tunes is the lead single, Without You. Now, if you listen back to that song, it's really odd. It doesn't fit any kind of standard formula, from verse chorus standpoint. That may be part of the problem. I think the songwriting was just not really cooking with this record. I did like New World. That is the instrumental that kicks off the album. It was sort of a nice moody thing, had a nice mixture of piano and guitar. And then I'd say my third favorite song on the record is Once. That's an interesting tune. But, like a lot of the album, it just kind of, it's not all that much to write home about. It just never really came together. Now, so that's enough about Van Halen 3. Now, the rest of these albums, I couldn't call this next one a failure by any degree. I think one of my main criticisms of this album is it fell victim to a trend that was happening a lot with, some of your first albums to make it out on CD. Everybody was just wanting to fill up the CD, all 80 minutes of it. And so I actually think this album, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, would have been a much better record with some judicious editing and just, if it had been pared down to fewer songs. Now, this album had a ton of hits on it, a ton of hits. So I think maybe some of those hits would be in the top three for me if they hadn't been so overexposed. But one of the singles is definitely one of my favorites, maybe my very favorite. Pound Cake, great tune. Love the use of the drill on the guitar there. Right Now, I think would be in there, except I'm just tired of it, and any song that gets used in commercials, I don't know. There's just something about that trend that I don't really care for. 316 is a really solid instrumental off this record, and then In and Out, just something very Zeppelin-y and cool about that song. Really great record there. Now, here's where we're getting a little bit of show and tell. The next record, I'm pretty certain this would be my wife Tracy's. Hey, Kitty. Her favorite Van Halen album. I'm talking about Balance. This came out in 1995. Really cool record. Sort of an unusual record. In a way, I think of Balance as being the fair warning from the Sammy years, in terms of it being kind of a little darker, a little less party hardy, kind of an angry record in some ways. Here's my Balance tour shirt. I cannot fit in this thing anymore, let me tell you. But I believe I saw this show in Raleigh with my first wife. Cool show. We missed some of it because we were trying to get to the beach, and got there late. But still a cool performance from the band. Top songs for me off this record. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. That's I'm pretty certain that's my top pick. Then Amsterdam, even though Eddie really, when Van Halen was parting ways with Sammy, he singled out this song as an example of Sammy's sometimes, immature lyrics. But still a lot of fun with that song. And then I'd say tied for the rounding out the top three would be between Big Fat Money and Take Me Back, Deja Vu. Really great chorus on Take Me Back. Next up, I would say OU812. OU812. Now I'm trying to get this so that there's not the glare of the screen to screen. Some of these albums are going to work better than others. I think this one there's a lot of glare because it's that black screen. But anyway, cool record. Liked it a lot at the time. Don't think it's aged quite as well as maybe I would have expected, but still some great records on here. Great songs. Pardon me, the pollen count's high today. Again, I'm not going to just edit the hell out of these things. I want them to just be informal. Everybody have fun. I hope you've grabbed a drink. It's not one of my drinky days, but I've got some water here, so cheers. Now, my top picks on this album would be Black and Blue. One of the, it's funny, as a guitar player, I haven't learned that many Van Halen riffs. I think on some level there's some intimidation going on. There's also Eddie's tone has always been really hard for me to cop. But there are a few things here and there that I've learned, and I did at one point know a pretty decent little version of Black and Blue. Very cool riffage there. Cabo Wabo, just wonderful, fun tune. Kind of reminds me of some of the stuff that I loved so much about 5150. And then Source of Infection. If Balance was Van Hagar's Fair Warning, then Source of Infection was Van Hagar's I'm the One. It's very reminiscent to me of that just feverish, hyperspeed boogie that Van Halen does, maybe better than anybody. So, cool record. Next up, I'm going to go with the return of David Lee Roth, and what I'm almost certain is going to be the final studio release from Van Halen, unfortunately. But if they did go out on this, then wow, they went out with a bang. Great record. Top tracks for me here. Number one, with a bullet off of this, is She's a Woman. Really love the tune. Love the way Dave comes in on the vocals on that song. Love the way Eddie structured the guitar solo. I think it's one of his more composed solos. A lot of his leads they're typically kind of, to quote my buddy Jay Rusnak, greasy, off the cuff stuff. She's a Woman has this really, really composed arpeggio part, but Eddie still plays it with a lot of passion and fire as he plays everything that way. I just think it really works well. Chinatown, great tune, incredible and witty lyrics from Dave as always, but especially so here. And the bass and guitar kind of in tandem, unison shred intro thing is just, it reminds me of some of the Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai stuff from the Eat 'Em and Smile album. So terrific there. Big River is great. Stay Frosty, it takes me back to me, Stay Frosty in some ways is sort of like an update of Ice Cream Man. The Trouble with Never is amazing, and Beats Working. Great record. Now, the only other thing I wanted to sort of share in terms of my opinion on A Different Kind of Truth is maybe they should have done the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion thing, but also spread it out. Not done a part one and part two, presented them as different records. In other words, you got 13 tracks here. Suffers a little bit, especially relative to a Van Halen album, in my opinion. It's just a little too long. So if they'd kind of taken, say, seven songs in one group, 6 in another, and then written and recorded enough songs, brand new songs, to get a batch of 8 to 10, and then done 2 separate records, maybe we would have had something even better. I love what we got, but one thing about this record is that they evidently went back in the archives and used a lot of the old riffs, maybe rewrote some lyrics. Some songs were kind of reborn, more or less as is, and just maybe polished up a little bit. But it would have been interesting to see what would have happened with just some brand new songs, with Dave having returned to the group and Wolfgang on bass. But again, I think this is going to be the last Van Halen album that we get that's a studio album anyway, that has Wolfgang on it. Because I think, unfortunately, Van Halen is probably done. That said, I'm going to, at number 7, we're almost near the halfway point. By far, the best of the Sammy albums, in my opinion. 5150. Great record. This record's gotten some flack here and there on the internet in some of the rankings. I still dig it. I think it has aged remarkably well. Really great vocals from Sammy. Great vibes just on this record. A very fun record. I remember shortly after I got my hands on the cassette for this, we went on a spring break, me and some of my high school crew, And we just listened to this record. It felt like it was all we listened to the entire spring break. And needless to say, we had a blast. So my top picks on this record would be uh, Good Enough, Why Can't This Be Love? Now, that's one of those rare instances where here's a song that got a lot of exposure, but I'm not tired of it. Really great tune. Has some nice guitar and keyboard unison lines that Eddie did. Uh, Dreams, another single that I just don't get tired of, which is somewhat rare for me. Summer Nights, just a perfect, you know, fun Sammy Hagar meets Van Halen tune. And then I'd say tie for the very best song on the album would be it would be between Best of Both Worlds and 5150. Best of Both Worlds really does kind of marry the best of the old David Lee Roth era Van Halen with the new blood that Sammy infused into the band. And then 5150, almost a proggy song for Van Halen, and has maybe the most impressive. Sorry, my low power mode came on, but it has maybe the most impressive single vocal note that Sammy ever hit. I think for me, it's somewhere. It's either 5150, the high note that he hits towards the end, or when he comes in on that very first Montrose album at the beginning of Rock Candy as the most impressive Sammy Hagar moments vocally. And that says a lot because Sammy's a great singer. The only Turkey on 5150, and I think it'd actually be a better album without this on it, Inside. You know, at the time it was maybe a little fun. You listen to it on phones and you hear some of the different little, you know, improvs from the band. I don't think they were improv. I think all that sort of riffing there at the end was a little too thought out. It just sounds campy and kind of just overwrought to me, and just I've never cared for that song that much. Everything else though on the album is pretty damn terrific. Okay, so now we're going to get into the top half of the list. Now, you can all figure out these are all going to be David Lee Roth albums, all from that first batch. And the difference, in my mind, in enjoyment, you know, the Goodfellas, when they go to jail and one of them slices the garlic with a razor blade to get it really thin. That's how thin the difference is, you know, in terms of my enjoyment of these 6 albums. So, you know, a year ago or a year from now, this list could look very different. But number 6, go with, oh boy, that's not showing up very well, but hopefully you can see it. 1984. 1984. Again, great record. Nearly perfect as all of these are in my mind. But my top tunes off of here, I think, you know, it's a little bit of cop out, but I think the record suffers a little bit for me from overexposure, some of the tunes. That said, though, even though they are overexposed, Hot for Teacher and Jump are fantastic. Still enjoy listening to those from time to time. Skip them sometimes if I'm not in the mood, you know, but it's very rare for me to skip a Van Halen tune, let's be honest. But I think the songs that I really enjoy the most now from this record will be Top Jimmy, Girl Gone Bad, and House of Pain. Now, the end jams on those last 2 tunes, the ones that close the album, Girl Gone Bad and House of Pain, not only incredible soloing from Eddie, but just great rock ensemble work from the entire band. Now, I forgot something. This is a bit of an oddity. Back to show and tell a little bit, but this shirt that I'm wearing is a bootleg from the parking lot of the Charlotte show that I saw in 2015. And I got these as I was leaving the show. So if you leave a show and you catch any of the guys going through the parking lot, you can get some real dough or some real deals, because they're trying to just go and unload them because they know when the concert's over, they're probably stuck with whatever's left, you know. But this one's sort of interesting because Unlike this shirt that has the classic logo on it, this one has sort of a vamp on the Van Hagar era uh, logo, but with the red and white bicycle stripes from one of Eddie's most famous guitars. And then this is the back. I think these are interesting to show people because, and then you've got the classic logo on the back. Uh, these bootlegs, the way they do them, they just go on the internet and get different JPEGs and stuff and make the shirts. So they're going to be unique. They're not going to be the same thing that you necessarily just see on eBay or Amazon. But they're also illegal. So I don't know if I should be showing them on video. But hey, what's done is done. Come and get me, coppers. Okay. So the number 5 here. And there are people that just think this album shouldn't even be called an album. This album gets so much flack, but it is my introduction to Van Halen. I love it, love it, love it. Diver Down. Diver Down. In fact, Diver Down contains the moment that made me decide. I'd been playing music since I was 6, but I'd really gotten into rock music, especially hard rock and metal. And I kept thinking, do I want to play bass? Do I want to play guitar? Do I want to play drums? I'm sure my parents are very glad that I did not decide on drums. But the deal sealer, so to speak, was when I heard the Van Halen version of Pretty Woman. And that's one thing that's amazing about Van Halen. Nobody, in my opinion, no band does covers as well as Van Halen in terms of really taking a cover and making it their own, and in many cases, doing it better than the original. Um, you know, both of the Kinks songs that they recorded in their careers, "Where Have All the Good Times Gone" off Diver Down, or "You Really Got Me," I think they're both far superior to the originals, and I love the Kinks, but that's just my opinion, as is all of this. Okay, and please feel free to. I like what my buddy Pete Pardo says with his rankings. Now, I've watched a lot of Pete's rankings. I don't always agree with Pete, but Pete is really, he talks about over and over that the whole point is that we're just getting together. This is meant to generate discussion, spread the joy that is Van Halen and these other bands that we love. And so I applaud you, Pete, and thank you for what you do. And please accept my Facebook friend request. I'm still waiting for you to accept that. Anyway, okay, so Diver Down, my favorites off this record. Hang 'em High. What can you say? Just monster riff. Another just, hyperspeed boogie that the band's so great at. A Cathedral, maybe the prettiest of all the different little Eddie, solo instrumental interlude things that he's released over the years. Just beautiful. I mean, there's, if I could sell my soul to the devil and right now just play Spanish Fly from a chop standpoint or Eruption perfectly, yeah, that'd be impressive. But in terms of just something that would be a lovely piece of music, still impressive, but less about chops and more about, hey, listen to this beautiful composition. Cathedral is it. Let's see, Secrets. My wife prefers the Van Hagar stuff, but she even digs Secrets. Beautiful tune, just amazing feel. One of those rare things that you could call a David Lee Roth era ballad. They didn't do a lot of them, but when they did, man, they were great. Coming back to the covers that they do, Dancing in the Street. Love this. Enjoy it far more than the original, Motown era tune. And I know to some people that's sacrilege, but for me, just so much fun, incredible. Absolutely just smokes any covers like the Mick Jagger and David Bowie Abomination. And I love the Stones and I love David Bowie, but boy, that was a turkey. Anyway, Dancing in the Streets, amazing tune. And then Little Guitars, something that you've got that intro and Eddie's sort of standalone instrumental magic, but then leading into something that's kind of along the lines of, say, In a Simple Rhyme off of Women, Children First, or Women in Love off Van Halen 2. just gorgeous, gorgeous ballad. Um, Definitely some of that kind of, mixing some salsa and merengue and type rhythms in with the hard rock that David Lee Roth has sort of given some classes about in recent tours. They'll do this breakdown and they play the Dance the Night Away thing and they point out, hey, we got this for this song, and you know, we're the ones who turned the heavy metal crowd onto Latin music. And in a lot of ways, that's exactly what they did. And you got Alex to thank for a lot of that too, the amazing drum work he does. So, without further ado, my number 4, no sophomore slump here, Van Halen 2. Van Halen 2. Wow. Great, great record. Obviously, you've got Spanish Fly for just something that'll blow your mind in terms of Eddie's technical capabilities and wizardry. But I'm going to say that my highlights here, I'd already mentioned it before, Dance the Night Away. Yes, single, maybe a little overexposed, but I've never gotten tired of it and probably never will. Just love the tune. Instantly puts you in a good mood. If you're somebody that can dance well, unfortunately, I'm not one of those people, but I still try. It'll make you want to dance. Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Just a badass song. Kind of, in my mind, in a way, Van Halen doing a ZZ Top, rewrite in some ways. Certainly with the message. Out of Love Again, Light Up the Sky, and Beautiful Girls. One of my favorite riffs. One thing we'll do as we move forward, I'm going to do a whole TDM Listomania at some point, and I'll probably need at least a top 20 slots for my 20 favorite Van Halen guitar solos. So, next up, number 3. Now the top 3 here. Women and Children first. Women and Children first. Very, very first CD I received as a gift was actually from my buddy Rich Reynolds, and he gave me Women and Children First on CD. I'd had it for years on cassette, but it was one of the first 3 CDs I owned. It was the first thing I was ever given as a CD. So thanks, Rich. Women and Children First, and The Cradle Will Rock. That's actually a lead I've been working on. Maybe at some point, once I've got it up to snuff, I'll post my version here on the channel. Fools, Romeo Delight, another hyperspeed boogie, Loss of Control, just an incredibly fast and yet tight tune. Take Your Whiskey Home, good Lord. And then the beautiful, In a Simple Rhyme, just fabulous album. I believe Evan Olson said that this was his favorite Van Halen record. As you can see, I'm giving some shout out here to some friends of mine. Many of them are musicians. Evan's a great musician. I can certainly understand why that's your favorite Van Halen album. Now, the top 2 here, I kind of vacillated, but ultimately, my number 2 is Van Halen's number 1. Their first album, Van Halen, or some people now call it Van Halen 1. Basically a perfect record. Top songs, all of it. So I think I'm just going to touch on the guitar highlights for me. Obviously, Eruption. That's played to death on classic rock radio, but still just awe-inspiring every time you hear it, even to this day. I'm the One, the Van Halen Boogie to end all Van Halen boogies, sort of the blueprint or prototype for all of them. Feel Your Love Tonight, one of the few Van Halen songs that rhythm-wise I can play all the way through, pretty damn spot on. Lead still has some stuff that's challenging for me. That's another one that one of these days, once I've really got it cooking, I'm going to want to share my version. Ice Cream Man, incredible, incredible tune. On Fire. You know, I in some ways I think that Tom Morello stole some of his ideas for his kind of DJ scratching technique from On Fire. I would not be surprised. And then my number one all-time favorite Van Halen album, and in my top 10 records ever. Fair warning. Incredible, 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 incredible. Um, Eddie was pissed at the time that they made this record. He just said, "This is my band. My last name's Van Halen. We didn't call the band Roth." I love Dave, but I think there sometimes tension makes for great music. I mean, you can see my very favorite band of all time and favorite album of all time, Quadrophenia. You see the poster here in the background. It's kind of like Roger and Pete. They took turns putting each other in the hospital. Well, Dave and Eddie, they were just very different people and didn't always get along. You've heard Eddie whine here and then. Dave doesn't want to be my friend. But for whatever reason, Eddie just said, "Okay, I'm taking control of this thing musically anyway." Would sneak into the studio after hours and be in there, just he and the producer, making changes, adding things, taking things away. But wow, however they got to this, thank God they did. Again, every note on it is perfect to me. Every song is perfect, so I'm just going to hit the guitar highlights. Mean Street, obviously that amazing intro, and then you've got the riff. Um, Dave sort of almost makes a movie with his lyrics on this. Just amazing, amazing tune. Dirty Movies, one of the few tracks where you hear Eddie play some slide. Center Swing, another great, Van Halen boogie. Unchained, very first tune that I was ever aware of once I started playing guitar, that introduced me to drop D. Where you take the low E and you drop it down a whole step to D. Incredible riff there. Hear About It Later, one of those songs that starts with this really pretty, Eddie clean guitar interlude, and then evolves into something a little harder rocking, and it all just flows really, really well. Great stuff. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do a spoiler on myself. My all-time favorite Eddie guitar solo is contained within an equally wonderful song, Push Comes to Shove. Just magical, magical song. You've got a lot of Eddie's legato playing in that tune. You've, of course, got some tapping, but you've also got some nice restraint, and the solo has this real arc to it. And I don't know if it was composed or not, or if it was completely off the cuff, or maybe, sometimes when I do a lead, I know, well, I know I pretty much want to start here, and I know I want to say this in the middle, and then I want to say this at the end to get out of it. But then a lot of the stuff in between is improvised. I don't know if maybe that was the case. Who knows? I'd love to ask Eddie. Hey, Eddie, let me know. Okay, well that's going to close out our inaugural edition of Listomania here on the Diamond Mind. Not the Diamond Mind, the Diamond Mine. Spoonerisms, aging, whatever. I do want to just give a shout out to my buddy Dan Marshall. I was going to play this as the background for this debut of Listomania, and my tape machine, my tape player, decided it was time to break, and rather than risk losing this copy, which Dan sent to me maybe a year and a half or so ago, and he said it was his second to last copy that he had, so this thing's precious to me. I was able to save it from the ailing tape machine. I'm going to figure out a way to hook up my old analog 4-track, and this will be the backdrop for a soon-to-come Satriani ranking. By the way, Satriani's first album in a couple years came out today. It's April 10th, 2020. Shape Shifting, I've already listened to some of it. Great record. Now, one of the things I'm trying to do with this, I want to have some background music just so it seems like, Usually when I'm hanging out with friends, I have some music on in the background. But I also don't want to just, get material kicked off of YouTube. So I'm trying to use stuff that, with Dan, he'd already given me his permission. If I use any stuff from major label bands, I'll probably use bootlegs. I figure, hey, that stuff, if it's off on YouTube and it's been on there a while, I'll probably safe from getting kicked off. But, I didn't have time to ask anybody else, so I'm actually using one of my records. So this has been the background. It's a record I released in 2006, so 14 years ago. Damn, I'm getting old. You might recognize this young fellow on the back. But this has been the background for today's episode. I think in some ways, the background being my own stuff for this inaugural episode is appropriate. There are some people I'm going to be asking, hey, I might need copies of your stuff if I don't already have it, so I can play it in the background. I've already got some musicians in mind. I know David Revis. I have several of his records, but didn't have time to reach out to him. There's a lot of other people that I know that have given me great records of theirs, and so I want to use this whole forum for some cross promotion of some artists that I really enjoy too. But again, hopefully everybody had fun. I know I did. Cheers, everyone out there suffering from the pandemic. Be safe. We'll all get through this soon. I'm sick of hearing that too, but it's true. But I hope you had fun. I hope this was a nice distraction from all the madness. And we're going to be doing lots more of this to come. Cheers. Thanks so much for watching.